Well, good morning, everybody. Jane Monreal here with you on a Wednesday, first day of April. Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. No April Fool's joke about that. We're going to bring in Majestic Storm right now into the Live Impact studio because we want to talk about weather. Feeling spring-like. Another warm down tap.
It's going to be really warm, even warmer than yesterday. Overall, I think it's a great looking forecast.
Okay.
We do have some changes on the way, though. I know a lot of people are thinking about Easter weekend. You want to know what's going on exactly. If you have an Easter egg hunt you want to go to, maybe you have a family brunch and you're wondering whether or not you can sit outside. Maybe you're heading off to church. So we have a lot to talk about. Let's just start with what's going on right now. It's 64 degrees. It's very mild outside. We're seeing partly sunny skies currently differently. I noticed this morning there was a little bit of moisture in the air, a little bit of humidity. Now, I'm not talking about your summertime humidity. We're not going that far, but we are starting to see our air mass kind of change from really, really dry to a little bit of moisture added into the atmosphere, which is going to be helpful when it comes to our overall rain chances over the next several days. No rain chances really today. We're going to stay dry here in the Queen City. Temperatures, again, already warming nicely into the low to mid 60s for many of us. 64 degrees up there in Morganton and 54 as we're looking towards Boone. So comfortable for that morning walk. A little sunshine to help wake you up this morning if you're just starting your day, turning on the stream. Now let's talk about today, the first day of April. I think it's going to be a great month. I mean, we experienced such warm weather when it came to March and it was very dry, and now we're going to start to see a little bit of a change in our weather pattern, going from really dry and kind of hot to now more mild and potentially more opportunities for rain showers. Today, though, here's a look at the rest of our Wednesday. We'll see some sunshine in the morning. I think a little bit more cloud coverage as we head towards the later half of the day. Today's high, 84 degrees. That actually feels like June 1st instead of April 1st. So if you like the warm weather, soak it up, because we will have more seasonal conditions arriving again by next week. I noticed a little bit of that moisture in the air. I mean, it's not a huge difference, but you just have to pay attention to it. It's going to feel a little bit more sticky come Friday, and Friday is going to be our next best opportunity to see some rain showers. We're really watching Friday specifically and Sunday specifically. We'll notice that, and we'll also kind of fine tune that coming up in just a few minutes, but I want to focus in on the temperatures still. We're going to top off at 70 degrees this afternoon in Banner Elk, so even really beautiful and comfortable up there in the mountains. 73 as we're looking towards Fleetwood. As we head just a bit south across the foothills, a beautiful day there in Morganton, mid 80s, going to be a warm one. 84 in Taylorsville. If you have any outdoor animals, make sure they're all prepared for the warmth. Lots of fresh, clean water and plenty of shade as well. And if you work outside in the elements, make sure you're dressed accordingly with light layers. I mean, it's going to feel very warm. Like I mentioned, more June-like than it is April-like. 84 degrees this afternoon with sunny skies there in Chester and 85 there in Lancaster. So overall, a gorgeous Wednesday, especially for those of you who love very warm and sunny conditions. Overnight lows tonight, we're not cooling down a whole lot, because really the big story right now is those very warm temperatures. We have warm weather today, mild conditions overnight, and then tomorrow morning it's going to stay nice and mild before we warm things up again. There's a look at our daytime highs tomorrow. So pretty similar as to what we're going to see today. So plan for 2 back-to-back warm days into the 80s. Again, 84 degrees today. 83 by tomorrow. If you want to fire up the barbecue, have some dinner outside, tonight would be the night to do it, or tomorrow, or maybe you like to just take a walk outside, especially later on in the evening. The next 2 nights are going to be perfect. Now look at Friday. 77 is where we'll top off. Friday we'll start to see some changes, a little more cloud coverage and some rain and potentially isolated storm chances. We don't have any severe weather threats at this time, and I don't think we actually will. We need the rain, but unfortunately it's a little inconvenient for that much needed rain as we're heading towards a weekend, just because it is our holiday weekend. 81 on Saturday. I know Saturday is the day that I'm getting out. I'm going to soak it up. I'm going to do something fun outside because it's going to be nice. 81 degrees, sunny skies, should be great. Small chance for a couple of pop-up showers, but besides that, no big deal. Now Sunday, for Easter Sunday, our high temperature will still be into the mid 70s. So Easter Sunday will start out into the mid 60s. We'll climb into the mid 70s. So warm temperatures overall, but we do have wet weather ahead, but at least it's not that cold, miserable rain. We got to get through that rain. Next week, notice how those temperatures, they start to drop back down into the 60s, which is a little closer to where we actually should be for this time of the year. Rain chances over the next 10 days, really starting to look fine. An isolated shower possible today. Friday, though, we'll be watching for more scattered shower activity, and then Sunday, notice we have a 70% chance. So Sunday is the day that we're watching. Monday and Tuesday were dry, and then next week, some more rain chances. Futurecast, let's get straight to it. Here's 5 o'clock tonight. Again, should be really beautiful. You see those little speckles of green right there? That's where we could see a random shower pop up, but for the most part, it's hardly anything. Many of us won't see any rain today. Here's Thursday morning, waking up, heading out the door. Remember, we're waking up into the 60s, so no need for a heavy jacket for your morning run. And then by 5 o'clock on Thursday, the time you're maybe driving home from work or picking up kids after school or after their after school activities, it's still going to be really nice for our Thursday. I'm not really too concerned about Thursday at all. Once we head towards Friday morning is going to feel a little bit different. We'll have cloud coverage. You can see all the clouds indicated in white there, a little bit more green popping up, pausing time at about 5 o'clock in the evening on Friday. Could even see an isolated pop-up shower. So if you have plans on Friday, I would not do them if they're outside. I would just be aware that the chances for light scattered rain will be there, about a 40% chance, and also an isolated storm or two. Not severe though. As we're looking towards Friday, there's that drop off, 77 for our high, still above our normal, and then Saturday's the good day to get outside, soak it up this weekend, 81 degrees. Notice Sunday, Easter Sunday, a cloudy day, mid-70s, but rain showers going to continue to persist across the Carolinas. Now, here's one of the models that we're looking at specifically. I'll tell you what, not all models are agreeing, but this one is bringing in new data this morning. 8 o'clock Sunday morning, this specific model is showing that front is to the west of us. In my opinion, this would be best case scenario because 8 o'clock, you're heading out to church, you're going to brunch, maybe you're spending Easter at the golf course, whatever it may be. Seems like the first half of our morning on Easter Sunday seems dry. But then as we head into the later half of the afternoon and evening, seems like that rain really starts to kick in. And this is not just showing some scattered rain. This is seeming like it could be more widespread rain. This is what we've been telling you guys. We need a good soaking. We need several hours of persistent rain. So now we're just focusing on the timing, which model is actually aligning with what will happen. This is also indicating that by the time we're waking up on Monday, that system is off to the east of us. So best case scenario, it'll hold off a little bit longer, letting us enjoy our Easter Sunday morning and then rain showers kind of to wrap up our weekend. You can see anywhere from about 1/4 of an inch to 1/2 of an inch for most of us. Some areas getting a little bit more than that, which would be great. Jerry Hunt Supercenter 7-day forecast looks like this. Going to be beautiful as we're heading into the next few days. Little cloud coverage here and there. Shouldn't be any huge problem. 77 for our high on Friday. Isolated storm will be possible. Saturday is the day to soak up the nice weekend weather. Sunday a little iffy with the rain, but again, I think there will be at least some time frame, whether it's in the early half of the day or into the afternoon where it will be dry for an Easter egg hunt. And then next week, 60s, again, our average high this time of the year is 69, so we'll see temperatures drop just below that as we're heading towards Tuesday.
That is gorgeous.
I like it.
Not too bad. Look,
I like it.
I like the Easter eggs on the on Sunday. Is that cute?
That's so cute.
Very nice.
Any Easter egg hunts for anybody?
No, not me. I used to love them though when
Oh,
I
I
was
used to
younger.
love a good
They were
Easter egg
so
hunt,
fun.
too.
Yeah. Did you do the real eggs or the plastic eggs?
The plastics.
Okay, I did too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same.
We were
Yeah.
talking about that today on the morning show, and
So people hid real eggs?
it's a thing.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean,
Definitely.
if it's a small one, but, you know, in Florida, in April, it's humid.
That's what I was like.
Ugh.
I never in Charlotte.
We are not
going to
have real eggs
we
out
had
on the lawn.
plastic eggs.
With the little treats inside.
Yes.
One of my eggs always had. Well, my dad would put a 20 in it.
Ooh.
I never got that. I never got that.
Oh,
20.
really?
That's
My
so
brother
fun.
Your brother?
always got it.
Do you think he planted it that way? Said,
You know, I think because he always put it in more cleverer spot. And Ryan is 6 years older than me, so of course
So
he was going
Ryan's
to
gonna
find
get
it.
smart.
So it wasn't even fair.
So it wasn't fair. It was stacked against me.
We had an Easter egg hunt with all my cousins. My grandma would do it for us, and they were plastic eggs, but in
Yeah.
each one there would be money, but it'd be like a quarter, 50
Same.
cents,
Oh,
$1,
nice.
$5, 10. So it would go
Wow.
up, but you know, like
Mar-
there'd only be maybe like two $20 bills. But then there would be a golden egg where it had maybe like a $50 bill. But we had
wow.
and it was so much fun. So we all looked
Yeah.
forward to it. It'd be like, okay,
Oh,
on your
sure.
marks, get set, go. And it was
I would
competitive.
go as an adult.
So
Honestly,
it'd be like
Ryan.
My grandma would say, her kids were not allowed to do it. This was only for the grandbabies.
Okay.
Even
That's
though
good.
the grandbabies don't get to do it anymore. She retired that. But it's still
Yeah.
one of those childhood
Oh my
things that you
gosh,
always
Well,
remember.
grandmother put all her money out on the eggs. She's like, I've run out.
I'm
I'm out.
out.
Now we're adults. She's like, it's over.
It's over.
Oh, well, that sounds like good fun.
Yeah.
Those memories.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Majestic. And we will be right back on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Welcome back at 9:13 here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. A number of stories on the national front that we're covering today. The first is Mangione is expected back in a federal courthouse later on today around 11 o'clock. So there's a live picture outside the courthouse. That will be happening at 11 again out of New York. Also, the Supreme Court is expected to hear arguments today on birthright citizenship and arguments on that. We do understand that the president is also expected to attend the arguments that will be heard starting around 10 o'clock this morning and ultimately deciding the lawfulness of the president's executive order seeking to end birthright citizenship. So we'll be keeping a track of that. And of course, we are also on a countdown for Artemis, and this is Cape Canaveral now. It looks like T minus just over 9 hours, and we will have you covered here on WCNC Plus. An exciting day for a mission around the moon with 4 astronauts headed that way. The countdown is on. We will be playing and replaying some of the press conferences that we've seen for you in the last number of days. And our Brad Panovich is also hosting a countdown show about 2 hours before the first launch window, which is going to be tonight around 6:24, hosted by Brad Panovich and Betsy Kling. Return to the Moon. That will start around 4 o'clock this afternoon here on WCNC Plus. All right, back out here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Of course, we're also continuing to follow the conflict and war in Iran. President Trump saying that he will address the nation tonight and bring you up to date with the latest with Iran, and saying that Iran has asked for a ceasefire. That just coming into the newsroom this morning. Let's go to Alice Barr in Washington. She has the latest now for NBC News here on WCNC Plus.
To have people pouring into
President Trump preparing for a rare primetime address to the nation tonight as he signals the war with Iran may be nearing an end.
I would say that within 2 weeks, maybe 3, we're hitting them very hard.
The president now saying that while his administration is negotiating with new regime officials he considers more rational, Iran doesn't need to make a deal to end the fighting because of the destruction of its capabilities. Like this new video U.S. Central Command says shows American forces striking underground targets in Iran.
If they come to the table, that'll be good. But it doesn't matter whether they come or not. We've set them back. It'll take 15 to 20 years for them to rebuild what we've done to them.
The push toward the finish line comes as U.S. gas prices crossed $4 a gallon on average for the first time in nearly 4 years. Drivers feeling the pain from Chicago.
This is the highest, that I've seen in a very, very long time, if not ever.
To New York.
Gas prices right now is insane.
To Washington, D.C.
Man, I just started checking my pockets. Come up with that. Can't afford it.
All I have to do is leave Iran, and we'll be doing that very soon, and they'll become tumbling down.
Stocks surged Tuesday on hopes the war will end soon and that it won't depend on reopening the Strait of Hormuz.
What happens in the Strait, we're not going to have anything to do with, because these countries, China will go up and they'll fuel up their beautiful ships and they'll leave and they'll take care of themselves.
Though it's hard to see energy prices falling if that critical route stays clogged. In Washington, Alice Barr, NBC News.
And we'll be right back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. At 9:20 here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, a new analysis from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce reveals that American medical breakthroughs are helping people live longer, healthier lives, sometimes by decades. And that means an economic ripple effect as well, all for the good. Joining us from Washington, D.C. right now here live to break it all down for us is Brad Watts from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Brad, thanks for joining us here.
Absolutely. Glad to be here with you.
So talk to me here with people living longer, 77 to to 40 years longer, depending on the diagnosis. What is what's behind that kind of progress?
So what this means in very real terms is that over a 30-year period, when you treat or you mitigate 4 disease states, obesity, HIV, breast cancer, and cardiovascular, you're generating about $167 trillion in societal value. That's what this study from the Chamber found. Now, that number seems almost too big to be true, but when you think about it intuitively, when Americans are living longer, they are healthier, they're paying more in taxes, they're more productive, and when they don't have to have a caregiver leave the workforce to take care of them, when you think about the value of that per person over a 30-year period, it makes sense. And the reason why we have these critical gains is because the private sector has invested billions of dollars into medical innovation, as North Carolina knows well with its innovative life science industry.
Oh, yeah, we have a great industry here, and I just heard you are a Lejeune-born North Carolinian, so you're very familiar with the
But
area.
I worked for Senator Tillis for a number of years as well. And so very familiar with North Carolina and the fascinating amount of investment going on in the Research Triangle.
Yeah, it really is happening, and we are definitely benefiting from that. So medical innovation, though, really changing history and bringing this economic impact, is this sustainable?
It absolutely is sustainable if we have the right policies and procedures in place. At the U.S. Chamber, we support market-driven innovation, we support strong intellectual property laws, and we're adamantly opposed to foreign price controls. Because what we found is that when you import foreign price controls into the United States, when you cap the price that the government will pay for innovative medicines, only 2 things happen. Number 1, you either don't get access to those medicines, or number 2, you cause a delay. In countries that have adopted this approach, sometimes patients can wait 500 to 600 days for access to a new medicine. And as anyone who's cared for a loved one struggling with a debilitating disease knows, 500 to 600 days can be a death sentence.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, so a healthier America is a stronger America in the way of economics. So you have also been vocal, the Chamber's been vocal about protecting innovation and research and development. So any specific policies does that apply to?
Absolutely. The biggest threat right now coming out of Washington, D.C. is a policy called MFN, Most Favored Nation pricing, which would allow unelected bureaucrats to set the price of medicines. And now, while that may sound nice in the short term, again, in the long term, what will happen is you will have fewer treatments and fewer cures. And as we've shown, when you think about the ROI of medical innovation, 27 to 1, it not only makes economic sense, but there's also the human element. When people are living longer, when they're healthier, when they're happier, when they're more productive, these are our mothers, our fathers, our grandmothers, our grandfathers. These are real people who we want to share the joys of life with. We can't afford to muck up this economic success story and this human success story by importing failed foreign problems.
What do you say to lawmakers then who argue that the drug pricing reform and the cost controls are more important than protecting innovation incentives?
2 things. First, you're trading what appears to be a short-term win for long-term problems for American patients. And second, allow market-driven solutions to fix the pricing problem. And we're seeing that right now. There are 2 companies who both have fantastically innovative treatments for obesity medication that are engaged in a price war, and the prices of their medicines are dropping precipitously. Why? Because patients are being given a choice and the market is working. Those solutions, protecting strong IP rights, supporting the market, are going to be what drives medical innovation and ensures that this American success story continues.
And obviously for patients diagnosed with the 4 that you mentioned, breast cancer, HIV, obesity, and heart disease, the outlook is a much more positive one now than it was decades ago.
not just much more positive, exponentially so. The average person now who's diagnosed with HIV is living 40 years longer, an average lifespan of 77 years. There's a statistic in this report that shows between 1989 and 2025, the mortality rate for breast cancer dropped 44%. These are our mothers, our sisters, our friends, right? These are real human lives, people that are living longer and getting the full, joyful experience of life because the private sector invested in medical innovation.
Yeah, very encouraging on the medical front, and better quality of a life too, to live much longer. Brad, anything else that our viewers should know today about medical innovation and potential advocacy efforts?
What I would encourage your viewers to do is go to uschamber.com/price controls, take a look at our research, take a look at our reports, and what you will see is that when we support market-based solutions and strong IP rights, we have success. But when we adopt price controls, what we're doing is ensuring that we're going to go the way of other countries, which have fewer choices and less access.
All right, Brad Watts from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, appreciate your time in the conversation this morning. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. At 9:29 here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Want to get you out live now to the countdown coverage from NASA. It's Artemis 2. It is T-minus just under 9 hours. Let's go ahead and listen in to Florida's coverage here on Live Impact News.
Well, in fact, you see there on your screen is a nice, better, closer up view of the upper stage and then our Orion spacecraft up on top. Now let's take you to a graphic of where we currently are in our tanking operations. You see there on your screen, on the left-hand side, it will tell you how far we are in our core stage loading operations. We're currently 28% of the way filled in liquid oxygen and about 30% of the way filled for the liquid hydrogen side. Meanwhile, for the interim cryogenic propulsion stage, that upper stage, you see it's all grayed out there because we haven't begun that propellant loading operations. I'll report out once that is underway. But for right now, we're just focusing on the core stage. Now, in the meantime, while the launch team is right now starting to fuel the rocket and that propellant loading is underway, our astronauts are getting ready to wake up and start their day. As a reminder, we will be sending 4 astronauts around the moon and back. Commander Reed Wiseman, pilot Victor Glover, and mission specialists Christina Cook and Jeremy Hansen will go on a 10-day mission around the moon. Artemis 2 is a test flight where we are going to test the life support systems with our flight crew on board. This is NASA's first crewed Artemis mission, and it will pave the way for our future Artemis missions for when we land humans back on the lunar surface. So to quickly recap, we are in fast fill for our core stage liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. And I'll report out once our upper stage propellant loading operations are underway.
As we monitor the scene from Cape Canaveral, Florida, and the in-house NASA TV live coverage, you'll hear that anchor or journalist dip in and out and just sort of sit on the live picture every now and then. But this is live with 8:51, T-minus 8:51 before launch, and right now all systems a go there from Cape Canaveral. We are going to have our own coverage here on WCNC Plus with our Brad Panovich and Betsy Kling about 2 hours prior to the launch. The launch is set for 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time, with the 4 astronauts scheduled to lift off from NASA's Kennedy Space Center in Florida, beginning that 10-day journey. And Brad Panovich and Betsy Kling will also have coverage and countdown to the actual launch time. So very exciting time as we continue to look in on the Artemis 2 launch and all the preparations they have done so far. And today is the big day, as it's been 50 years now since we've had any kind of mission, manned mission around the moon. So first such launch there in more than 50 years. And again, this will pave the way for future Artemis operations and missions, and then eventually kind of give us that test drive to Mars with the goal of landing on Mars, man on Mars as well. But fascinating pictures as we continue to listen in now and watch the coverage from NASA. This is their in-house TV coverage from the Kennedy Space Center in Cape Canaveral. Looks like we have some puffy clouds out there, but according to the experts, we have heard that right now things are looking good, and a strong showing for the systems ago, all systems ago at 6:24 Eastern Time. Very exciting time as we've had our own crew here at WCNC Charlotte, including our extraordinary producer, James Brierton, working with our other sister stations under Tegna, as well as Brad Panovich and Betsy Kling, to bring you the coverage that we will start here at 4:30 as we count down to NASA's launch of Artemis 2. Really is cool to look at those pictures live. We're going to take a quick break here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. At 9:37 here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, I'm Jane Monreal. It's a big day. April Fool's Day, yeah, sure, but no joke. It's systems ago for now at Cape Canaveral in Florida, as we're going to take a live picture here at the launch pad, Kennedy Space Center. It's a beautiful morning out in Florida as we hope to see Artemis 2 launch from that site and that launch pad in less than 9 hours for their first mission in more than 50 years. They're going to take 4 astronauts up and around the moon, and the experts and the crews on the ground, they have been preparing the launch pad and area since Monday. The crew remains in quarantine, limiting their exposure, but right now we're hearing that everyone is good to go. So is the launch pad, so is the Florida skies. But yesterday we did have a press conference, actually several of them, as we count down to the Artemis 2 launch, and we'll get you caught up there if you missed any of this briefing. This is the latest from Kennedy Space Center as of yesterday, previously here on WCNC Plus.
Good afternoon. You're looking at a picture of the Artemis 2 crew. It was taken yesterday at Launch Pad 39B with the SLS rocket and Orion spacecraft. Our first launch attempt for the Artemis 2 mission is tomorrow, April 1st. The 2-hour launch window opens at 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time. Welcome. I'm Antonia Jaramillo, and this is the pre-launch news conference for the Artemis 2 mission. Joining us today to speak about the launch countdown is Jeff Spalding, Senior NASA Test Director.
Good afternoon.
And Mark Berger, our 45th Launch Weather Officer with the Cape Canaveral Space Force Station.
Thank you.
They're going to provide some brief opening remarks, and afterwards we're going to take some questions from media here in the room as well as online. For those joining us over the phone, you can press *1 to ask your question. So without further ado, we'll kick it off with you, Jeff.
Thank you. All right, and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome, and thanks for joining us today. We are a little over 29 hours from our opening of the launch window tomorrow, and I am very excited myself, and just coming from the firing room just a little bit ago on my way over here, talked to a bunch of members of the team, and I'll say, normally when we're in the firing room working over there, folks have got their heads down and they're working and they doing all the business that we do of the space business, but I'll say there was a lot of smiles today, so felt really good about that. As the team is preparing, I think everybody's pretty excited and understands the significance of this launch. We did talk to the flight crew last night. We had a briefing with them. We had another one just a little bit before I went down to the firing room. We had another briefing with them. Last night was just to kind of go over the day of launch routine with them and kind of a refresher for ourselves and for them, and that went really well. They were in great spirits. And then we had another briefing today just to talk about how the launch countdown was going, and as we'll talk here in a little bit, it's been going really well. Let's see, since Charlie spoke to you yesterday, we've got quite a bit of work done. We started out yesterday, the first thing we do usually is fill up the sound suppression systems with water, and when we start working on getting the liquid oxygen, liquid hydrogen systems ready for our propellant loading that's coming up in the future. We did power up all of the vehicles. We powered up the Orion core stage as well as the ICPS yesterday. We did communication checks, RF checkouts on the systems, and then after that we got through all of that work. Then we went ahead and powered down the ICPS because there was no more work for them until later tonight when we power ICPS back up. But of course, core stage and Orion stay powered up through the remainder account. Today we got launch pad ground system configurations in work. We're doing closeouts in a number of areas. We're doing walk downs as we work through the pad to make sure everything is configured for launch. We're also in work on the late stow right now. We should be getting the Avatar and the bags that we're doing in the late stow going up. They were prepping them in the PTCR down in below the pad terminal changeout room, which is the area beneath the pad where we have some rooms, and getting those ready to go up, and they should be being installed as we speak. And then let's see, tonight we're going to be doing a whole lot of other work as we get ready to clear the pad. We do have some work associated with the Orion ground equipment and systems that we use to do the leak checks on the crew suits, and so we'll be working those later tonight to configure those and check them out and make sure they're ready for when we hook up to the crew on launch day. We'll be powering up some of the Orion guidance systems later tonight as well. We do intend to clear personnel from the pad at about 3 in the morning at that point, and then we'll get ready for our air to GN2 changeover at about 4 in the morning. We do that. We purge the vehicle with air routinely for the whole flow. Once we get to this point where we're getting ready to add hazardous propellants like hydrogen, for example, we change over to GN2 to have an inert environment for safety purposes on the vehicle and all of the volumes that are on there. Let's see, later, once we get through the air to GN2 changeover and all the other work is done, our launch director will have a final weather brief, and once we get out of that, she'll signal the team that we are ready to start our propellant loading, and that's scheduled to occur at about 7:34 tomorrow morning. That loading takes a little over 5.5 hours. We'll work through that. As mentioned yesterday by the launch director, we have inserted some time in front of that propellant loading time frame, so that if we are in fact done with all of the work and are ready to go and we can start a little bit early, like a few minutes, we will try to take that and take every bit of time that we can to get ready and prepared for the crew and be prepared for anything else that might happen. So we did that purposefully to give ourselves a little bit of room in that time frame based on the launch director's guidance. Let's see, during the propellant loading, the flight crew will wake up at about 9:45 tomorrow morning. They'll have breakfast and start working towards their preparations for launch day, getting their suits on and doing all the other work that they have to get ready to head out to the pad. And then once we get to all stages replenish, which is a little after almost 1:15 in the afternoon tomorrow, we'll send a closeout crew to the pad. All stages replenish is when we're done tanking, essentially. We filled all the propellant onto the core stage and the upper stage ICPS. And at that point, we're only just replenishing the propellant that's boiling off at the same rate, so we keep it full. We do lose quite a bit of propellant during that time frame, and so we will continue to just work that throughout. After that, we'll send a flight crew to the pad. They're going to head out a little before 2 o'clock and to get into the spacecraft. As I mentioned, the closeout crew is going to go out before them, so they'll have been working that time to prepare the capsule for the flight crew arrival. And then the flight crew will get out there, and then I'll work in the insertion portion, in which we're going to strap the flight crew members into the seats of Orion, and after that we'll do the final closeouts in the crew module. We'll close the hatches. There's some pressurization checks we do and some other things and at the end, and then we'll clear the white room and then get ready to get into terminal count. Our closeout crew clears the white room at about 5:30 tomorrow night. It's almost an hour before launch. That's our plan time. After that point, we'll finish the rest of the work and configurations that we can do remotely, and then, excuse me, we'll proceed into the launch team poll, and then after that, the launch director will perform her management poll. And then we'll get in a terminal count for the last 10 minutes of launch countdown. So that's essentially the work ahead of us. And I would say that our team has been working amazingly hard through these weeks and months trying to get this vehicle ready to where it is. We've had some challenges. The team has done an outstanding job managing each and every one of those throughout all of this, through many different scenarios, through weather, through lots of different things that we've had to work through to try to get through all of this and get to where we are today. People are excited and ready to go on this this first chapter on our way back to the moon since the 1970s. So we're very excited. So, Mark, over to you.
Right. Thank you, Jeff. Good afternoon, everybody. So amazing times. It's great to be here at this point. And of course, weather has been a nuanced thing for us at times here in the generation phase of this mission. But again, look outside right now, great weather. Hopefully we will keep all of that, although the breezes continue to be an issue for us, but a minor one for us in terms of weather. If we could pull up the satellite imagery here, you can see currently what we're looking at. Another beautiful day here in Florida. See a few cumulus clouds moving from the east side of the state towards the west. That is our onshore flow that we've had really the most for the last 2 weeks or so. And a few of those cumulus clouds could evolve later today into a few showers, much like what we saw yesterday evening. And again, that's going to be one of the watch items for weather as we go into tomorrow and tomorrow afternoon as well. Let's take a look at some of the overview slides here just to kind of give you a synopsis of what we're looking at here. So the breezy weather does continue. Again, Artemis is a very resilient vehicle, so despite the breezes, it looks like that concern is a minimal concern for our day of launch. Lightning risk with any sort of showers that we have is quite low, generally only on the order of 5 to 10%, and that would be generally during the late afternoon, and any of that activity pushes towards Orlando after that. So again, it leaves us in a better spot here for our launch opportunity. We take a little bit look at what else could potentially be of an impact. You may have heard about the sun has become a little bit more active. Here over the last day we've had a solar flare erupt, but again no or minimal impact for us out of that, as most of the energy is not earthward facing. So again we continue to look good in that department as well. We look towards backup opportunities, so for whatever reason, if we can't utilize tomorrow, the weather of course is a changeable entity, and we do have a tendency to move towards somewhat less favorable through the rest of the week. It isn't a huge drop-off, but again, kind of a little bit more of a situation where we'll have to monitor those feisty cumulus clouds and potentially a few showers and breezes as well. So we go to the next slide, please. And again, I just wanted to bring this up real quickly with the sun. So this was an image here from this morning. Again, the area that's circled on the solar disk, that is the area that we were watching that produced a solar flare yesterday. Again, it's directed most of its energy away from the Earth, and in fact there's been no response in terms of the particular particles that we look at that could influence the launch vehicle. And so by this point, or within the next couple of hours, if we don't get a response at all.
At 9:50 here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, you were watching a press conference happening live, or not live, it was yesterday. Get you caught up on what's going to happen later on today at Cape Canaveral, Kennedy Space Center for the Artemis II launch. And don't forget, as we count down to Artemis II, so our friends Brad Panovich and Becky Kling, they will be bringing you the Artemis Return to the Moon countdown to the launch starting today at 4:30. It's about 2 hours prior to the actual launch time, which is set for 6:24 Eastern time. So hopefully you join us then as we all count down to the Artemis II launch here on WCNC Charlotte. Right now we're going to take a quick break on Live Impact News. We'll see you on the other side in 2 minutes. Welcome back in at 9:53 here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. Want to get you out to live coverage right now of Artemis II, the preparations happening in Cape Canaveral. We're going to go to their in-house coverage. Sometimes the announcer comes on and talks about what's happening as they count down, but it doesn't sound
right
like...
now it's a little bit of quiet.
No audio right
Yeah.
now? All right. T-minus 8:30 and change. But now audio is up. Let's go ahead and listen in on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
Counting from the opening of today's launch window for NASA's Artemis II mission. I'm Antonia Jaramillo in NASA Communications, and if you're just joining us, the Space Launch System, or SLS rocket, is in the process of cryogenic propellant loading. That means the launch team that is currently in Firing Room 1 that you see on your screen there are loading the cryogenic or super cold liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen on the SLS rocket, fueling it for flight. Now, the team just reported that we have now started our fast fill operations on the liquid hydrogen tank on our upper stage of the SLS rocket. That is also called the interim cryogenic propulsion stage. It is the second stage of our SLS rocket. You have a great view of it there on your screen. Up at the top, if you see, you have the Orion spacecraft. Underneath there will be then actually the smallest section of the SLS rocket known as the Orion stage adapter. And then shortly underneath that is our interim cryogenic propulsion stage. Now, teams are now starting the fast fill operations for liquid hydrogen. Now, fast fill, as the name suggests, means that teams are just loading this propellant at a faster rate. Now, following the liquid hydrogen operations on the upper stage, teams will then also work on their propellant loading operations for the liquid oxygen tank that is also in there. In total, the SLS rocket has 4 tanks, 2 liquid hydrogen and 2 liquid oxygen, 1 of each on each stage. So you have there our upper stage, or the interim cryogenic propulsion stage, and then underneath sits the core stage. That is the first stage and the main stage of the SLS rocket. It is the orange segment that you see there on your screen in between the 2 solid rocket boosters. We are also in our fast fill operations for both liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen on the core stage. So fueling is well underway, and everything is looking good so far for our 2-hour launch window that opens at 6:24 p.m. Eastern Time this evening. Now, Artemis 2 is scheduled to lift off from Launch Complex 39B. That's what you see there on your screen. That's where SLS is currently situated. And it is a gorgeous day here on the Space Coast. We have some beautiful white puffy clouds and some clear blue skies. We're looking at 80% chance of favorable weather conditions. And our astronauts that are getting ready to launch on this historic mission are now starting their day. They woke up not too long ago and will pretty soon go through all of the checkouts and steps that are needed before they're ready to get on their rocket. There's a picture of them on your screen there. From left to right, we have the pilot, Victor Glover. Then you have our mission specialist, Jeremy Hansen, and right next to him is our other mission specialist, Christina Cook. Next to her is then our commander, Reed Wiseman. These 4 astronauts will go on a 10-day mission around the moon and back on board the Orion spacecraft. Now, fun fact, you see again there, we were talking a little bit about the different sections of the rocket, and we mentioned briefly the Orion stage adapter. Now, the Orion stage adapter is the last section of the SLS rocket. It's what sits in between the interim cryogenic propulsion stage and the Orion spacecraft. And it's also what houses our secondary payloads, or these shoebox-sized CubeSats, that will be providing and conducting scientific experiments. They'll be deployed shortly after separation from the upper stage and the spacecraft, and they will go to their specific destination in space to conduct scientific data. Now, inside the Orion stage adapter, fun fact, our astronauts, so Reed Wiseman, Victor Glover, Christina Cook, and Jeremy Hansen, they actually got the opportunity to sign the interior of the OSA, or that Orion stage adapter. So their names are on that rocket. It is fully built by NASA at Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama. Now, going back to the upper stage, that interim cryogenic propulsion stage, it holds roughly 24,000 gallons of liquid propellant. The liquid hydrogen tank is approximately 17,000 gallons, and the liquid oxygen is roughly 6,000 gallons. Much smaller in comparison to the core stage, that holds roughly 733,000 gallons total. You have 537,000 gallons of liquid hydrogen on the core stage tank, and then roughly 197,000 or 196,000 on the liquid oxygen tank. Fully fueled, SLS weighs about 5.74 million pounds of thrust. And now all these 4 tanks, the one on the upper stage and the one on the core stage, all those tanks, they feed into the engines at liftoff. So the core stage will feed the 4 RS-25 engines that you see at the bottom of your screen there. And the upper stage, meanwhile, will feed its 1 RL-10 engine that is actually enclosed by the launch vehicle stage adapter. That is the nose cone-shaped orange structure that you see on your screen there. It is actually hiding the RL-10 engine from our view. But this is done on purpose to protect the upper stage. So to quickly recap, we are in fast fill for liquid hydrogen on our upper stage. We have not started our propellant loading operations on the liquid oxygen tank yet. I'll report out once that operation is underway. And on the core stage, meanwhile, we are still in our fast fill operations for both tanks, for both liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen.
You've been watching live the coverage from NASA at the Kennedy Space Center on Artemis II, counting down to tonight's launch. We're going to take a quick break here and regroup at the top of the hour on Live Impact News on WCNC+. Time right now is 10:04 here on Live Impact News on WCNC+. I'm Jane Monreal. We are counting down to Artemis II. The launch is tonight, scheduled for 6:24 Eastern Time. We will dip in and out of some of their coverage that's kind of in-house from the NASA folks there at Cape Kennedy, or I should say Cape Canaveral Kennedy Space Center there in Florida. But right now, let's get you back out to a press conference previously recorded for WCNC+, get you caught up on some of the experts from NASA on WCNC+.
We'll still have to watch that sunspot group, however, because it is rotating off towards the center of the solar disk. So again, this flare not a concern, but should there be additional ones, that will be something that we'll have to monitor a bit. But again, at the current time, I see no issues in terms of our launch capability for that. Next slide, please. All right, and taking a look at our cross section. So we we meteorologists like to look at the atmosphere not only on maps, but we also like to look at what's happening through the depth of the atmosphere and with time. So here at Kennedy Space Center on this graph, you can see the metrics there, altitude there, going up into the atmosphere basically to the level of what a jet aircraft would fly. And then in time, we go from left to right from today through the weekend, including our launch opportunities. So the green on this map, which pops out here, is just a moisture profile. It doesn't necessarily mean rain. It just means that there's a little bit more of a predisposition for more clouds and rain. You also see the winds on there. Those are the black lines that are there with the little barbs on the end of them. So that gives us an indication of wind speed. So right now we're out of the east-southeast. We'll generally remain in that direction. We might back a little bit more to easterly winds as we go, but generally speeds in the 15 to 20 knot range, which again does not violate any of our liftoff weather constraints there. You do see superimposed on there the various launch opportunities, including tomorrow as the primary window, and then the next 3 days. So you do see a day-to-day fluctuation with that moisture content. On any given day, we'll likely get a few showers to develop off of that. But again, with the onshore flow, most of those showers with the sea breeze each day, which tend to be the more vigorous showers, will move off towards Orlando. You do see towards the end of this chart, so going into the weekend and beyond, a much more massive amount of moisture, the green there. And did want to point that out because this is just but one model at one time, and there has been a fair amount of inconsistency to how that moisture evolves. There's just pretty strong hints that we will see an increasingly unfavorable environment as we get beyond this weekend and maybe late into the weekend. But again, I wanted to point that out because some of the charts I'm going to show utilizing another model gives you an idea of the battle that us meteorologists follow every day with trying to assess the uncertainty component of the atmosphere. So next slide, please. All right, so this is for tomorrow. Again, the green blotches here would indicate rain. You can see still an onshore flow. You do see a little bit of green to the west of us. Again, that would be sea breeze driven activity that has moved off towards the west during the late day hours. But still, if you squint hard enough, you can see a few green blotches lurking in the Atlantic waters. Again, much like yesterday evening, if you were out and about, the few showers rolled in. That is certainly a possibility for us, again, for tomorrow evening. Next slide, please. We are now in range, though, of some of our more high-resolution model guidance. So this indicates two different models that we look at here for the opening of our launch window for tomorrow evening. You can see some of them showing a few blotches of showers offshore, particularly the model that's on the left there. The right is mostly clear for us and has more of the showers, again, to the west of us. And again, in this pattern with an onshore flow, any showers that we have will move from east to west there. So again, it looks pretty good. Even if we have showers around, we have a 2-hour launch window, we should be able to shoot the gap between those showers, and none of these look particularly vigorous. Again, as I mentioned, the risk for lightning, which would expand our standoff distances as far as us launching a vehicle, looks pretty minimal for that threat for tomorrow. Next slide, please. So putting the graphics into numbers here, still maintaining a 20% chance of a no-go condition during the launch window. So the optimistic side of me says that means 80% chance of go here. Again, isolated showers wandering around, but again, a lot of real estate between those showers in all likelihood. So again, we should be able to find some clear air to launch Artemis 2. Again, there's those winds out of the east-southeast, 15 to 20 knots, mild temperatures there. And again, the order of concerns from the weather standpoint here, cumulus cloud, and then winds would be a secondary threat, and then a much more distant threat would be solar weather. Again, the current flare, not a concern. It would be if there were any additional ones that form on the sun, potentially we would have to watch those. So let's go into the next day for our Thursday. Again, pretty similar pattern, still onshore flow. It does look a little windier, again, so that is an additional concern. And you also see a little bit more green, at least in the area. So again, I do suspect that a Thursday evening attempt would have a little bit more weather to deal with. So a POV of roughly 40% is what I'd be advertising for a Thursday evening launch attempt. Again, very similar concerns with the cumulus clouds and the winds as well. And then the next day, going into our Friday to close out the work week here. Again, you see very similar pattern. Winds still in that roughly 15 to 20 knot range and easterly or southeasterly, and still some green blotches out over the ocean. So again, that's a hint that there'll still be enough moisture to generate some showers. But there does again look to be more breaks in that weather for Friday. So POV would go back down to 25%. So roughly in the same ballpark as tomorrow for Friday. Tomorrow still looks to be probably the most optimum day of the lot. And then finally, going into the weekend for Saturday, again, this is what I pointed out on that cross section in my earlier slides, is that more.
We're going to break away from that press conference from NASA that happened yesterday to bring you some breaking news right now at 10:10. We have a homicide investigation taking place in Northwest Charlotte. According to CMPD, this is happening in 10,000 block of Florentine Way in the Freedom Division. This coming to our newsroom about half an hour ago, 45 minutes ago. So we are waiting to get more information. We have a photojournalist who is headed that way, but just wanted to give you an update here on WCNC Charlotte with a homicide investigation taking place in Northwest Charlotte. We'll bring you more as soon as we get our journalists out on scene and gather more information. We will take a quick break on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. All right, 10:13 is the time here on Live Impact News. It's April Fool's Day, but we're not going to be fools here, not with Mark Henry in the Live Impact studio joining us this morning from Alloy Wealth Management. He's here to help us avoid some of the financial mistakes that people make, so we're not left asking, where's the money? Mark, nice to have you here.
Thank you for having me on.
All right, let's talk first about 401ks today. Apparently, there are some pretty costly mistakes that people are making without even knowing it.
Yeah, no question about it. It's not an April Fool's joke. Unfortunately, literally millions of people don't take advantage of what's called a company match. So imagine this. Your employer is trying to give you a pay raise and you said, I'm good, don't need it. Who would do that? Well, if you're not participating in your company's 401k and they match, that's exactly what you just told them you don't need a raise. Think about this. If they say they'll match 3% of what you put in, if you just put the minimum 3% in, you just got a 3% pay raise.
Right. Pay yourself.
Why would you not? They say, I can't afford to. You can't afford not to. You have to do this. It must happen. So check with them. Now, along with that same thing on the 401k, though, also ask the HR department, do you have a Roth 401k? So many companies are matching on a Roth. Maybe we should put some of the money in the traditional 401 and some of the money in the Roth 401, because remember, that's going to grow tax-free. And we all like tax-free.
We do. I mean, it could be, it's just like a staggering amount of people, though, that are leaving money on the table, right?
Right, and they think they can't afford to do it, but you have no choice. It is literally telling the employer, yeah, I'm good, don't need a raise.
Huh. I mean, we're stretching our money as it is, so like 3% doesn't sound like much, but on...
You got to get the free money.
All right.
You have to. We got to cut
find
out
a way.
Something has to happen. You got to get the free money. There's no question about that at all. It has to happen.
That's good.
And so many people are missing out on this. It's crazy.
All right. So retirement planning, it's not just about the money, is it? What do you mean by that?
Well, it's definitely not just about the money. It's we've been convinced there's some magical number that we can have when we actually retire, and we're going to be okay. The Bible's very clear. You can't build your walls high enough to protect for everything. So there is no magic number. It's about a spending plan. But you have to have money to get a spending plan, to get income. So when you think about this 401k that we were just talking about, that's really where it kind of starts. That's one of the backbones in a financial plan, is investing money in your company's 401k over a long period of time. Remember, it's not called timing the market, like I know when to put it in and when to take it out. Forget all that. It's time in the market.
Time in the market.
So if you start investing today and you continue that for a long time, guess what happens? Magically overnight, you go, oh, I've actually accumulated a good bit of money. That's when you can start to transition that into something called an income plan. But it starts really with the backbone of that 401k or the Roth 401k.
All right. And if you could find room for both, that would be
Oh
ideal.
my gosh, right?
Okay. Any other blunders that people make when it comes to 401ks?
They borrow against them.
Oh.
This is our long-term, but it's not our emergency fund. They take out too early. Think about this. If you withdraw money from your 401k, traditional 401k, before 59 and a half, you're going to pay income tax on the money, plus a 10% penalty. So think about this. If you're in a 20% tax bracket, plus the penalty to get hold of the money, you just paid 30% on every dollar you took. If you took $1, 30% went to Uncle Sam, you only got 70 cents. That is a horrible idea.
Yeah, but I mean, emergencies happen, right?
Emergencies do happen, and that's why we have to have an emergency fund for the emergencies where we're not paying a 10% penalty and we're not paying taxes on the money for the emergency.
Okay, so we have the emergency fund, the Roth IRA, and then the regular 401.
That's correct.
All right, so when it comes to when it comes to the thing that surprises people, what surprises people when it comes to their 401ks?
I think a lot of times people are surprised how just putting in a minimal amount over a long period of time adds up to as much money as it is. I see clients all the time that say, Mark, I never thought I did anything right, but I just kept funding my darn 401. Now that creates its own unique problems, because a lot of times they don't have a lot of other money, but they got the 401. The issue is what? Well, they owe tax on all that money, so it's not quite as big as it seems. But just the fact that they did that allows them to now have a good chance at a successful retirement. And it really starts when you're young, and just do it and never stop, and it's going to be okay. That's one of the first surprises. The other mistakes I see people making, though, is they're not looking at what they put in it. Like sometimes they've been in their 401 for 15 years. You think the things you might have picked 15 years ago, with the way the world's changed, are still the things you need to have in that 401 today? Wow. Think about that. The way things change. Or nobody's looking at what fees are being charged inside the 401. So typical 401s offer a selection of stuff. Not everything, but they have a selection. Is anybody looking to see, are we buying the lower cost good stuff, Or are we paying a lot of fees inside there? They can have fees. They're riddled with them sometimes.
Oh.
So we just need to look at it.
Okay.
Not a bad thing. We just need to look.
All right. Look at your 401 every once in a while. All right. So April 1st, that means we are talking like the last few weeks before tax day, right? The refund, the average American receiving about $3,000.
Yeah.
That sounds like it's a pretty good amount. But
Decent.
but people are thinking about what to do with that money
Yeah.
right now. What should they do?
Well, first off, when you think about the refund, if you're getting a large refund, that tells me you just let the government use your money for 12 months interest-free. How nice of you. How generous of you to allow them to do that. Now, I'm not suggesting you shouldn't, but I like to time mine a little closer. You know, typically if you have to owe $1,000 or get $1,000, that seems like a pretty good deal. You start getting much over $3,000 in a refund, you let somebody use your money for a long time. Now you have to be honest with yourself and know who you are. If you know you would have spent that money during the year, just let them have it and get your big check.
Oh, okay.
Now, when you get the check, what do you do with it?
Yeah, what do you do?
Number one, everybody's going to say, pay off your credit cards. Got to get out of debt. Pay off your credit cards. Not if you don't have an emergency fund. Fully funded emergency fund first. Take that thing, put it away where you can't get to it unless it's an absolute emergency. Nothing invested, no Bitcoin, nothing going on here. We got to have a cash emergency fund. If we've got a fully funded emergency fund, let's go tackle some debt.
All right. How many months should your emergency fund cover?
You know, there's a lot of variances on that. I think it really amounts to what kind of job you have. I would say, like in this market we're in, if you were a nurse, as long as you're a decent one, I would think you could get a job tomorrow. So yours might be a little shorter, but other people might need a little longer. But typically we like to say 4 to 6 months, something like that.
All right, something like that. So if you do get that big refund, you've got the emergency fund covered now.
Yep.
Tackle the debt.
Right.
This sounds really great. What else is there left to do?
What if you don't have a lot of debt or the debt's gone? Then it's time to invest. Let's go do something, right? And again, I love this. If you are being financially responsible and you're on a pretty good path, so let's say you've got the debt gone, the student loans are gone, you've got an emergency fund, and you get this refund check, and you say, you know what, I'm going to invest some, and I have no issue with, let's go take an extra vacation this year. Let's enjoy. That's okay to do that. Sometimes people are so involved in this idea of saving. When you get a little windfall like that, is it okay to spend some of it? Absolutely. I think we have to enjoy.
Yeah, we absolutely do. But if you are also getting a refund of $3,000, you might want to visit your finances during the year, right?
Right. Take a look at your deductions and make sure. And that's where you do this time of the year. Take a look at what your deductions are to make sure you're on track for next year. So you either get another smaller refund or you get a refund, you don't owe too much. Or if you do find you owe too much, now you're actually writing a check. Hey, let's fix that today so you don't write a check next year.
There you go. All right. You've got your eye on some other big picture items here. A lot of baby boomers retiring in big numbers. What should people know about that?
Well, when you think about this idea of retirement, as I'm a Wall Street money manager, but Wall Street will not save you in retirement. And what I mean by that is there's something called sequence of returns risk. It's something everybody should understand. It's more important to me than market risk. It's this idea of timing. And when I say timing, you could have two people retire with the same amount of money, and 20 years later, one of them is broke, and one of them still has plenty of money, and they made the exact same returns. How is that mathematically possible? Has to do with sequence of returns. Think about this. If you retired in 07, pretty good year. Life's good. It's time to retire. And then what happened? 08. So the sequence of the returns, the losses came early. You're withdrawing money to live. You got to live. You retired. Then you had a really bad couple of years, and it set you up for a disaster. Many people had to go back to work. Now think about the person that retired 4 years later, let's say. They retired in 2010. You could arguably say they went on to have some really good years for a while. And so if the average return for both those people could be the same, but when the losses came is what destroyed one person's retirement and not the others. And what control do we have over when the losses happen? And we could start a new war tomorrow or something. Who knows? Markets could collapse. And so sequence of returns is one of the greatest risks that a retiree faces, and there are ways to prevent it. It's why you can't have all your money in the Wall Street casino.
Ah, okay. So I don't know how you hedge your bets and the timing when it comes to a sequence of returns.
You can't hedge it with timing. That's why you don't put all your eggs in one basket. It sounds old, but that's a true story. You don't put all your eggs in one basket.
All right. Mark Henry from Alloy Wealth, we thank you so much. Good conversations. Topics are timely. A lot of folks retiring and getting their refund or paying. All right. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. And we'll be right back here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus.
That was just great today.
Welcome back to Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. It does appear that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is having a press conference out of Orlando. It is the Florida's SAVE Act. Let's go ahead and listen in live now on WCNC Plus.
For identification and making sure people are citizens, I support that. But it's interesting, if the Save America Act federally were to be enacted, 99.7% of Florida voters have already complied with what that law requires. And so you're talking in Florida, very small number of people that would, and not to say they're not eligible. I mean, it may have been when they signed up or whatever. So that's pretty impressive that that's where we already are as a state, that this major piece of legislation would have an impact, but it would have a much smaller impact in Florida because we've already done what they're looking to be able to do. But this bill protects and expands integrity in our voter registration process by requiring the verification of U.S. citizenship when you're doing your voter registration. Our Constitution in the state of Florida says only American citizens are allowed to vote in our elections. And so we need to make sure that that is the law. The bill also requires all voting to be done using paper ballots, allowing for a verifiable hard copy in the event of a recount. And we keep all that. We don't, the supervisors do. You have some of these elections that are very close, and sometimes they go through, and you can count by hand and go through and do that. And I think you need physical evidence. I've never supported the idea that you just vote on a computer, because who knows what's happening with those. So this way, if there's a dispute, you just grab the ballots, you go through, you have observers, and people are able to see for themselves. We're also making sure that when you're providing information or identification, that we're using secure forms of identification. So we're not using, we tried to do this years ago, legislature didn't do it, but they finally did it now, about these student IDs. I mean, a student ID does not mean you are a resident of the state of Florida. Student ID means you're going to school. Now, most of our state universities, our undergrad is 90% in-state, system-wide, but still, that doesn't mean that that's everybody. So they're not doing that. You got to have a valid ID that proves that you are a resident of the state of Florida. We also bolster our accountability for election crimes, particularly petitions. So these petitions, it's been, first of all, we've done a lot to rein in the abuse, but they try to get on special interests. They spend tens of millions of dollars to try to get on the ballot and to try to change our Constitution. And they're allowed to write an amendment. Are they writing that amendment in a way that's clear to voters, or are they trying to write it in a way that's going to trick as many voters as possible? Obviously, it's the latter. So they try to do this. All the people, all the groups that are involved in this will make money if these things pass. And so they got to get these petitions. And what we found is it's rife with fraud, fraudulent petitions. There'll be people, it's like, hey, you have a 75-year-old lady in Lady Lake, and all of a sudden she's being told that she signed a petition to make weed a constitutional right. And I didn't like that. I didn't ever sign that. Well, how did it get there then? Somebody did that. And so there's been a number of prosecutions about this. We need to make the penalties even. And honestly, cheating in a candidate race is bad, but cheating to change the Constitution, you have one election, you have another one that comes up. So if somehow there's a miscarriage of justice, that's much easier to correct. Once something's in the Constitution, you can't unring that bell. And I just think that should be a process that's being done with integrity and transparency. I think it should reflect the actual will of Floridians, not special interests that try to pull the wool over people's eyes. We also have transparency to the candidate qualifying process because we want voters to be more informed. So you're not allowed to qualify if you don't meet party affiliation requirements. You have to attest on oath that you meet all the constitutional requirements for office. And if you don't, then there will be cause of action to be able to keep you off the ballot. It requires candidates to disclose any dual citizenship they may possess. I think that's important that you know that as a voter. And then one of my favorites requires new and returning candidates for Congress to disclose stock trading activity while in Congress. And so what it'll be, so say, Joe Blow's running for Congress, you will have to say, I intend to trade stocks or I will not trade stocks. And you will have that information. And if they go and they say they're not, and then they do, then when they run again, they have to say, did I trade or not trade? And the reality is it's gotten to the point where it's become a national farce. What goes on when you have Nancy Pelosi outperforming people like Warren Buffett, when you have members of Congress, buying things, and then, a week or two later, major events occur that causes those stocks to go up. It's one thing to hit the jackpot once in your life, but when you see it routinely for people that never had any financial acumen, all of a sudden show up to Congress and they become like, the best hedge fund managers in the country, something's wrong with that picture. And I remember it was bad 10, 15 years ago when I was a U.S. congressman. So I was a three-term U.S. congressman. I've recovered fully from that experience, and I'm very clear thinking now. And you go in there, it's crazy. But what I said was, I get in, and I said, I'm not doing any stock trading. And so since I got elected in 2012 till the president, I have not traded a single stock while I've been in office. And I just think that that's the right thing to do. Now, I didn't need to do that, but I didn't want to be in a situation where, I'm selling Exxon or buying Micro, and then something happens where I'm voting and people, oh no, you're voting on that because of that interest. So, you do the 401, you do whatever you do for just normal investment. But I think it's really bad look when you see what happens with these members of Congress. So I know they're trying to ban that practice. We don't have the authority to ban because they're federal officials, but we do have the authority to disclosure and do the disclosing of this. And we need to return in this country to a little bit better civic spiritedness, some civic virtue. Like when you get in these positions, it's not about you, right? I mean, it's about doing the people's business. And that may mean you sacrifice a little bit. And that's just the way it ought to be. But I think a lot of folks up there, they view it as an opportunity to be pigs at the trough and just do whatever they can. And then people have lost a lot of confidence in their representatives over the years, partially because of the culture that's been created. That's one of the reasons I'm a big believer in term limits for members of Congress. I just think you need change, and you need to force the change. So I am excited to be able to sign this. This is a big deal, but it isn't as big a deal in Florida because of all the hard work we've done over many, many years. And I think from the time Wilton was Senate president until probably 23, we had 2 or 3 year period where all these issues we just addressed in a very strong way. And what happens on all these, I sign it, they sue us, right? They go to a liberal judge. The liberal judge sides with them. Then we appeal, and then we win, right? So that's probably what will happen on this. I've just seen it enough. I've seen the song and dance long enough. But it's funny because anything that we do, we'll sign. They'll forum shop. They'll go to it. And there's some judges will rule against us 100%, no matter what, no matter how many times they get reversed. So you do it. And then media, judge rules against Florida election bill, and then, 6 months later, that decision gets reversed. And you won't find much reporting on it getting reversed. It's just that initial one, right? So we've had that, and I would say on our election stuff, 90-some% have been overturned when a judge has tried to stop it on appeal. They get overturned, and sometimes I think we've even gotten to the U.S. Supreme Court to do a stay. So that's just par for the course. We understand that that's happening, and we do our best to be able to overcome that. But that's what I anticipate will happen with this. These changes aren't effective immediately. They're going to be effective in the not too distant future. Nevertheless, I think they're going to try to do it, and I know there's a lot of talk about different stuff with elections federally. The Congress, they've missed a lot of opportunities over the years to address, I think, some real problems. In elections is one of them. I think there's a lot more that could have been done with immigration to stop some of the madness that we see. Now, the border is great now since President Trump came in, but I will tell you there's visa fraud. There's all kinds of chain migration. Birthright citizenship for people here illegally coming in, birth tourism from the CCP, sending people in, go on a 3-week vacation, have a baby, get American citizenship for the baby, and then you go back to communist China? How does that make sense? And the Supreme Court is going to hear arguments about the 14th Amendment and whether that means that citizenship applies to people that are not authorized to be here. Now, when the founder, well, it actually wasn't the founders, it was the Civil War generation, when the framers of that provision of the 14th Amendment, what they were trying to do was overturn the Dred Scott case, because the Dred Scott case said Dred Scott was not a citizen of the United States, which, he was, came from a family that, you go back far enough, was brought here against their will, and then this is the only thing he knew, much different than somebody coming illegally violating the law. So Dred Scott lost the case, and Abraham Lincoln was very forceful in saying that was a bad decision and it shouldn't be followed. Lincoln said it shouldn't be followed. Now they'll say, oh, you got to, the courts are so sad. Lincoln said, I'm not going to follow that decision. Then when the Civil War ended, they did the 14th Amendment, and the idea was to clarify that no, Dred Scott should have won that case, and that he, as well as all the former slaves, were citizens of the United States. But then that has now been applied in ways that the framers of that provision would have never contemplated. Because first of all, we didn't have, coming to America was a big deal in 1865, 66. You just couldn't hop on a plane and get here, stay 3 weeks and hop on a plane and go back to a foreign country. That wasn't the way it worked. And so they weren't thinking in terms of people flooding in violation of the law. But I think if you look at those debates, clearly their intent was not to lead to what's happened. That's for sure. The question is what does the language actually say? How was that originally understood by the people that ratified it? And I think, you look at the evidence of that, I don't think that they intended someone to just come here on a visit who's foreign, have a kid, then go back, and then that kid becomes an American citizen. That kind of cheapens the whole process when you make it a tourist thing rather than something that was what they intended. So the court's going to look at that today. I don't know. There's procedural things. There may be reasons why they don't rule for the administration that have nothing to do, but hopefully we'll get some analysis, because they really haven't ever addressed this specific question. They've addressed legal immigrant, someone on a visa from China. They've never addressed the illegal. So I think it's something that's really, really important. But I just, when I put out a thing today, there was an analysis in the most recent year that they have figures, I think 2023, 9% of all babies born in America were born either to people in the country illegally or on birth tourism. Is that something that we think is good for this country? I just don't think that's any way.
All right, everybody, we are following some breaking news, a homicide investigation in the Freedom Division with CMPD. This is it looks like a live press conference right now, so let's go ahead and listen in on Live Impact News.
432-8477 and speak to our homicide detective directly. You can also reach us at Crime Stoppers or the MP3 tips line. Any questions?
A few questions. So this seems completely random right now. Do you have a suspect idea?
It's still too early to tell. Like I said earlier, we are asking that if anybody has any information, to please call us and talk to our homicide detective. As soon as more information come up, we'll have our public affairs unit put it out.
What can you tell us about the victim? Are you waiting to release any more information?
It's a male victim.
Do we know if someone came into the front door? Did they open the door? What was the circumstance surrounding this?
No, it's still too early. As more information develops, we'll put it out to you guys.
This is clearly an area under development right now. Are you worried maybe about the lack of neighbors because there are so many homes under construction, or what is your hope with that public information?
Well, whenever we have incidents like this happen, it's sad and unfortunate, but we are not worried about folks moving on to the community. It's a pretty safe community. If you pull up the stats, it's not much incidents around this area. So this appears to be an isolated incident.
And so anyone in the area at all, doesn't have to just be this neighborhood, could be anybody that lives nearby, for example, if they saw maybe a car going off fast or anything along those lines.
That's right. If anyone has any information that might be helpful or useful to this investigation, please give us a call and we'll look into that.
We're hearing that it's a family that lives there. Is everybody else okay? Was somebody else injured, or?
It's still very early in the investigation, and to develop more information, we'll have our public affairs unit put it out.
Okay. Any other questions?
No. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, Stephen.
And you're listening to a live press conference in the Northwest Charlotte area, a neighborhood there with CMPD conducting an investigation around a homicide. Our Richard Devane is on scene. We will have more information coming up on WCNC Charlotte at 11:30. A brief break here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. At 10:46 here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus, it does appear that the commentary is back up from the in-house coverage of NASA's Artemis II mission with the countdown on. We'll take you out live to Cape Canaveral now on Live Impact News.
But we're still in fast fill. I'll let you know when we transition into topping for the core stage liquid oxygen tank. And then on the upper stage, teams are also in fast fill for liquid hydrogen. And they have not started the liquid oxygen operations on the upper stage yet. I'll make sure to report out all of these milestones as they're underway.
All right, it looks like they are dipping in and out of some of their observations from the NASA folks there at Cape Canaveral, and the countdown to Artemis II tonight at 6:24 Eastern Time. Taking a look there at the launch pad, clouds in the backdrop, and a beautiful Florida sky. But right now, looks like all is silent as they continue to do their preparations here for the Artemis II mission. And we have been covering this like they have since the beginning of the week and following up with all of their press conferences and briefings every day. We're going to go back to the one that wrapped up the latest one. This is as of yesterday afternoon. If you missed it, we will again continue and pick that up from where we last left off here on WCNC Plus.
Moisture fetch that was shown later in the weekend on that model. You can see it's a lot closer to home as we go into Saturday. It's actually spilling some of that moisture in towards us. Again, this is probably the most aggressive model at that. So again, just part of that uncertainty component that we deal with when we have limited forward visibility going out a number of days. So all things considered, a Saturday evening launch attempt would definitely have to throttle the POV back up again to right now about 30% or close to 1 in 3 chance of a weather violation on that date. So tomorrow looks to be the best. Other days hit and miss, but still pretty good. There's nothing here that is screaming a no-go for the entirety of the window for any one of these attempts.
Thank you, Mark. We like to hear that. All right, we will now open up the floor to questions here in the room and also online. Just as a reminder to those joining us over the phone, you can press *1 to submit a question. All right, we will start with Bill Harwood.
Hey, Bill Harwood, CBS News. Jeff, good to see you.
And we're going to break away from that press conference. And again, today's launch, the first window open at 6:24 tonight Eastern Time. Take you out to what's happening live right now. Vice President Vance swearing in Colin McDonald as Assistant Attorney General. This is happening live in Washington, D.C. Let's listen in on Live Impact News.
And Pam helping us in setting up this office. I want to thank Colin, your beautiful family. You have 5 kids here. And I guess in age from 2 to 11, is that right? 13, 2 to 13. So you're 13, great. A beautiful crew, a great American family, and this is really a great American mission. As Andrew said, our entire social safety net, our entire idea of neighbors helping out neighbors, of Americans helping out Americans, is premised on the idea that only the people who really need these programs get them. And that when the American taxpayer sends money to a program, it goes to somebody in their community who has the legal right to be here, who has the legal right to actually benefit from these programs. If you don't do that, the whole thing falls apart. Our sense of social trust, our sense of belonging, our sense that we help each other out, but we help out the people in our community, not the fraudsters who are getting rich off of our generosity. That whole thing falls apart unless we take fraud seriously, and that's what Colin is going to do. And one of the things that Colin has talked to me about, and that I've been kind of shocked by, even though we've been sort of living this anti-fraud mission for the past couple of months, is that when you have fraud being committed in this country, the Department of Justice has has largely turned a blind eye towards it if it's under a certain dollar amount. One of the things Colin is going to do is make sure that no fraud, no matter how big or how small it is, no fraud is small enough or big enough to look away from. And I think that's going to reimpose deterrence. It's going to make fraudsters know that they're going to suffer some consequences, and it's going to make the American people know that these programs are being protected for the people who need them, because there are a lot of them out there. We want to help them, but we've got to get rid of the fraud in order to do it. So without further ado, what we're going to do is I'm going to swear Colin in. We're going to take some photos, and then I think Colin, actually, we'll swear Colin in. Colin will say a few words, and then we'll take some photos afterwards. So thank you all for being here. This is a great mission. This is a great family, and we're grateful to you guys for taking this mission on. God bless you. Okay. Without further ado, come on. Okay, kids, come on up. They are looking sharp today. Okay. So, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Colin McDonald, do solemnly swear.
I, Colin McDonald, do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States
Against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith.
That I will bear true faith.
And allegiance to the same.
And allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation.
Without any mental reservation.
Or purpose of evasion.
Or purpose of evasion.
And that I will well and faithfully.
And that I will well and faithfully.
Discharge the duties.
Discharge the duties.
Of the office on which I'm about to enter.
Of the office on which I'm about to enter.
So help you God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you all for being here today. This is an important day for the United States of America and for the Department of Justice. And to begin, I want to say some words to some select groups of people that have made today possible. First, I want to start with a word of thanks to the President, to the Vice President, to Mr. Ferguson, to the Attorney General, to the Deputy Attorney General, Mr. Blanche, for having the vision to create this new division to ensure that the American taxpayer is protected and to ensure that there is confidence in our financial security within the United States. A hearty thank you goes out to those visionaries for creating the division that we are launching today. Next, to my teammates led by Deputy Attorney General Blanche and Attorney General Bondi, I thank you for the work that we have achieved together to ensure the safety and prosperity of America over the last year. Your hard work does not go unnoticed. Even while the people of America may not get to see it, they are sleeping well at night because you are not sleeping at all at night, tending to the public safety mission of the United States of America. To the American people, my promise to you is this: that I will work tirelessly day after day to ensure that if someone out there dares to steal your taxpayer dollars, that there might just be a federal prosecutor on the end of that bad decision, that no longer will we be uninterested in low levels of fraud. We will be interested in all of it. And if someone out there right now is deciding and determining whether they will file a false application to try to steal your taxpayer dollars, we're going to care about it, and we're going to find it, and we are going to prosecute you as hard as we can. What is the goal of this division? The goal of this division is to ensure deterrence, so that people who are right now being dishonest and stealing the hard-earned taxpayer money, that they make right decisions, that they are deterred. That is what justice is for, to ensure right and honest and good conduct. That is what the mission of this division is. And finally, to my family in front of me, this task that Daddy is embarking on is a big, big task, but it is not bigger than my task with you. You are my biggest task. And the devotion that I have for you will be the same devotion that I give to the people of the United States to fight for them, to ensure that they have the confidence that their government is doing the right thing, to identify fraud, and to prosecute those and bring justice to those who are perpetrating against it. That is my message to my children here today. And to all the rest of us, it is time to get to work. I am grateful for this opportunity to work on behalf of the United States, and I'm thankful for the confidence that the Vice President and the President has given and placed in me, and I look forward to honoring that confidence by doing the best job possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin.
All right, you're watching live Vice President Vance swearing in Colin McDonald now as the Assistant Attorney General. We are coming up on 11 o'clock with Charlotte Today. Coming up next, and Nick Sturdivant will join you again here at 12:30 on Live Impact News. Have a great morning.